Hello, boxing fans. We're here with another news update. I'm your host, Kurt Ward, and I'm joined by Alex Morris, Adam Smith, and Paul Webb, and we're going to be discussing the news today that apparently it looks like Froch is interested in taking on Gennady Golovkin for looks like a September date. It's a fight that we all want to see, for whatever reason, and well, I don't know if Adam wants to see it, but we'll get to that in a minute. But it's a fight that's been put out there, and Froch, to me, looks like he's 1 foot in retirement. But Eddie Hearn has said that he's shown interest in it now, and this is the type of fight that he'd be motivated for. Obviously, the Chavez fight fell through after he's lost to Fonfara. Paul, I mean, let's just say if this fight does happen. I mean, obviously it's very early days. First of all, how big would it be? I mean, Eddie Hearn's talking about Wembley, and how do you see the fight going?
I mean, it's a big fight. I mean, Froch has proved that he can sell. I mean, they sold the O2 completely out for Kessler. He can sell big arenas. He's the biggest ticket seller in the country. So I think there's definitely could be money in it, and they could definitely make a massive venue. Could they do Wembley? Possibly off the back of what they achieved last year. I wouldn't put anything past them. Having said that, the argument has always been that it's not pay per view in America. I've never agreed with that argument for why they shouldn't make the fight happen, but it's not pay per view in America now. It won't be pay per view in America by September. That's not going to change. So if that's their whole basis for making the fight, then the fight won't happen. But it would be massive. I mean, it'd be pay per view over here. It would sell a huge amount of tickets. I mean, all the serious boxing fans will be desperate to see it. Golovkin's got a good following in Europe, so I think there'll be enough people here purely to see him, and it would be huge. But I very much doubt this fight's going to happen.
Adam, we all know you're a big Carl fan. Do you first of all, do you think it happens? And if it does, how would you see it going?
I don't think it happens, to be honest. I don't think it should be happening for a few reasons. I think Golovkin, it's not his fault that everyone's either running scared of him or there's no middleweights for him to take on and beat elite ones anyway. I mean, for a fighter that could have spoke about it and we believe, could genuinely make 154. You have to take your hats off to him really to say that he's prepared to go up to 168 to face bigger challengers. Um, I've just this Daily Mail article that's kind of triggered it today. I think it's a bag of shit, to be honest. I th-
Well, it's Jeff No quotes Powell, isn't it? So,
yeah.
I think the same.
Well, because it don't say it within the article, but I was having a scoot round today. I've not got it at hand, but the Tom, I think, is it the Lofo? Is that his name? Um, when he said, "Oh yeah, Golovkin's prepared to move up to super middleweight, prepared to go to England," blah blah blah. That's not a recent quote. That's quite an old quote. And it's interesting today that on Eddie Hearn's personal mail column, he gives the Froch and Golovkin situation about 10 to 15 words, in a pretty long blog. What it was today, just along the lines of watch this space. And then I've just watched the IFL video from Boston with Eddie Hearn today, and he's saying it could happen, but equally retirement could happen as well. So he's definitely playing it straight down the line. There. Basically, it don't sound like there's been any developments. It's a quiet week for Jeff, and he's just put this out there. As for how I see the fight going, not very well for Cole Froch, to be honest. I think that he's definitely got the size to beat Golovkin, but as I've written today and as I said on Sunday, I think to beat Golovkin you need a granite chin, well, fucking concrete chin, and you need to be quite a slick boxer. Finding one of those could prove impossible. With the ultimate equalizer that Golovkin has and will continue to have in power. His power is phenomenal, as we all know. But Cole Froch certainly doesn't fit the. He fits the description of granite chin, but he doesn't fit the description of slick boxer who's going to be able to go out there and take rounds off Golovkin. I think that if the fight were to happen, Froch would. We've seen his versatility before at boxing Abraham, etc. But I just think he's going to come out and try and fight fire with fire, and I think that's a very bad idea. I think Golovkin's punch variety and footwork is going to be very hard to deal with, and I would struggle to watch it, to be honest. Whether I was just saying off here, then I don't know if I'll be able to take myself to go and actually pay and watch the fight as I've done many times before because I just can't see it ending well. But we'll watch this space.
I think if the fight did happen, it's one of those ones where you'd have to take your hat off to both men. To be honest, Golovkin, as you said, he looks quite a smallish middleweight who could make 154, and he'd be going up against obviously a big, strong suit middleweight in Froch. And Froch will be 38 by the time this fight comes around if it happened. And he's been out for over a year, so you'd have to say to go in the ring with an animal like Golovkin, that would that he'd deserve all respect, no matter what happened in the fight. Alex, as someone who is not a big fan of Carl, shall we say, is this fight right up your street?
Oh, it's a fantastic fight, isn't it? We're going to be seeing Carl the Cobra Froch against Gennady Golovkin, and it's going to be over in well, I hope it isn't over in a few short rounds, because I would
You're
love to.
hoping for a Calzaghe Lacey type beating, are
Absolutely,
you?
and maybe a stoppage in the 12th as well, just after the sort of Jermaine Taylor stoppage that Carl inflicted on him, just
Icing on
for
the
an
cake.
added bit of irony that one of his greatest nights comes back to haunt him. Um, Look, this fight is, you can't really give much of a credit of much credit to the rumors of it, as you guys have said, the whole Jeff Powell thing. I mean, I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him, and to be fair, you could probably throw him quite far because he's a little shrewd worm of a man, isn't he? But no, it's a good fight, but this whole backtracking thing that Hearn and Froch have done over is pretty much embarrassing, and the whole thing before about this fight isn't pay per view in America. The reason why this fight isn't pay per view in America, it isn't because Golovkin doesn't have a name in America. It's because Froch doesn't have a name in America. Let's get this very clear. Froch overrates massively his drawing power in America. The casual fan, and it is the casual fan that you target for a pay per view market. They don't know who Carl Froch is. They haven't got a fucking clue who Carl Froch is.
I think it could be an element of both of them not being quite up to it, and I do agree that
Oh
Froch.
yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying that Golovkin is a pay-per-view star in his own right. Certainly not yet. But I'd say right now, if you were to make this fight in America, Golovkin would be the A side.
Yeah,
And that's a fact for that. And they can't say that he's not a pay-per-view star. They were trying to piggyback basically off of Chavez's fame, and that would have probably pushed it. They would have done a lot of hype behind it, the Chavez name, and then they could have put in Froch, or he did or had all of his successes, the 80,000 and Wembley bollocks. But now that Chavez has been proven to be an absolute waster, he's fucked, and now they're backtracking and they think, oh god, we need something, we need to make a lot of money, we need to cash out, and that's what Golovkin represents to them. And if there is excuse me, and if this rumor is true, that's all it is, cashing out.
yeah, but is it worth cashing out? Because you're not going to be surprised, but I do agree with a lot of what Mr. Hearn says, as everyone knows. But Froch has already got a load of money in the bank. He ain't as a thicko like some we've seen across the years, dwindling all the money away. He's got more houses than I've got rooms in my one house, to be fair. So he's got the money there stored away. And it's such a dangerous fight. That's why as I always said, Chavez would have been a brilliant fight to retire on. He's going to get paid a shed load of money. He was going to walk straight through him and knock him out. Unfortunately, fortunately for the likes of Alex, that opportunity is gone. Will never be seen again. I don't see the point in Froch taking the Golovkin fight, which is heavily, heavily dangerous. He'll probably be the outsider to win that fight with the bookies, and I don't see the point. He's going to get paid less than Wembley, in front of less people than Wembley, and in a heavily more dangerous fight. And like Kurt says, he's pushing 38 now. It's just getting a bit boring really with Froch. We're just seeing every single interview that Eddie does. He ends up going through. Well, his finances, his legacy, his bloody sense of humour, his family life. I mean, I would rather him, to be honest, at the minute, announce his retirement, and then fair dues. If this so-called right opportunity comes up, then come back. We've seen that many a time before. It's just this limbo that we're in, and
Yeah, I think that's what we all want to hear. We'd rather him just come out and say, "No, I'm
yeah,
retiring," or the only fight out there that I'd probably stick around for is Golovkin, but only if the money's right. At least then we know. But it's like this has been thrown out just to keep his name in the headlines without him actually fighting.
yeah. I'm a bit
I mean,
bored of hearing it, and like I said on May the 31st last year, I think he would, and I said he would rather retire than fight De Gale. But now I just think he would rather retire than fight. Full stop. Yeah, I just is he. is he worried about going away from the limelight and the game? And is that why he's putting the story out and maybe going on commentary and flirting with the gym, etc. I don't know.
He's obsessed with his own fame. He's obsessed with the respect that he gets in the public. He wants to be adored and he wants to be loved. And putting this news out there, or whether he did it or not, just sort of adds to that. He's going to be on the Sky Show on Saturday, apparently, talking up the Gale fight, the fight that he ducked essentially. And I think it's absolutely pointless having him there. And all he's going to do is talk about himself. He's going to talk about George Groves. He's going to talk about Wembley, and he's just going to try and big himself up. He's not going to bring anything to the table apart from I beat Andre Durrell and De Gale hasn't earned his shot at me. That's all he's going to add. He's not going to give us any analysis because he's a fucking cunt.
I think, to be fair, I do agree that he does make an idiot of himself easily when the camera's on. But this is how much of a history lesson do we want to give the listeners? This is someone who went on the road, was winning world titles, back-to-back world title fights, couple of losses along the way, and the fame really didn't come until late on in his career. So I mean, really, can we knock him for trying to keep hold of that fame and keep in the spotlight? I don't know. I mean, yeah, he does make a knobhead of himself regularly, but let's just laugh at him and crack on it. I mean, it don't bother me. He can do it as much as he wants, but it does really seem to rile some folks.
I thought he was going to agree with Alex that he was a fucking cunt when you said
Well,
I
I'm not
agree,
going
but,
that far. I'd say bit of a knob when the microphone or the camera's on. That's
But
as far as I'll go.
Bit of a knob.
But Paul, I'll just ask you something. When we've heard from Eddie Hearn regarding this fight, because fans are obviously tweeting him a lot before this and saying, fight Golovkin, make the fight. Hearn's always put it out there, there's not a lot of interest. I'm sure he said to us on the podcast that he didn't think it was a big pay-per-view fight. I'm sure he said something like that anyway. But do you think maybe they've floated this idea out there just to gauge the fans and see what they're saying about this, to see how much interest they believe they can get in this fight?
Well, there's something we've all got to remember. Just because we know loads about a fighter doesn't mean everybody else does. So it's like the Guillermo Rigondeaux situation, only not quite as bad, wherein we're all like, oh yeah, if Quigg fought Rigondeaux, they'd sell out the MEN and blah blah. Well, the real likelihood is they probably wouldn't. And it's the same for this. So Golovkin is a massive, massive name to boxing fans, and he's becoming a big name for the casual HBO viewer in America. And people over here are starting to cotton onto this Kazakhstani killer guy they've seen knock people out on YouTube, and they're starting to get there. But he is not a massive name. Froch de Gale is bigger than Froch Golovkin because more people know who De Gale is. More people would buy into that fight if De Gale wins. There's also the fact that Gennady Golovkin isn't a super middleweight. Through no fault of his own, he hasn't fought the best at middleweight yet. There are fights out there that he should and could take, willing the opposition who wants to get in there with him before he moves to 168 anyway. And he is a small middleweight. So I think any idea that Froch is scared of Golovkin, I think it's nonsense. I mean, the reason why Froch won't fight Golovkin is quite straightforward. He's been out of the ring for a year. He said in that IFL interview that he would need at least a 12-week training camp. He wouldn't take a 6 or a 7. He wants to fight in Vegas. This might do that. So that's a potential upside for it. If not, it's going to have to be over here in the City Ground. But he'll have been out of the ring for 15 or 16 months. They can't get a stadium fight booked for the summer now. That's just not going to happen. So when they're going to fight? End of this year? Are they going to fight next year? And also, in fact, if Robert McCracken tells Carl Froch, I don't want you to take the fight, Carl Froch won't take it. That's how much respect he's got for Rob.
This is an awful fight for Vegas, is what I'm saying. Because Golovkin really doesn't have a name in Vegas at all, and neither does Froch, and it'd be pointless to have it over there.
Exactly. So it's not going to happen there. It's not going to happen because I just don't see that Froch is in the right mind. You watch that video and you listen to him, and you know what? We all say, well, we want everyone to fight, but you listen to the bloke talk, and he says he's got numerous houses, numerous projects on the go. He's a multi-millionaire. He's got another kid on the way. Why does he want to go and fight the guy? It's not like he's 26. I mean, Froch he's quite an old super middleweight who's been fighting at a top level for year after year after year. And it's like with the Calzaghe thing. There was always someone else they could have said, well, he should fight, Calzaghe should fight him, Calzaghe should fight him. It's not like he's even a super middle. We're talking about a guy who'd be stepping up to fight Carl Froch. The fight, it's a non-starter for me. I'd like to see it purely because I think the notion that Carl Froch will get smashed to pieces is nonsense. And I'm not a big Carl Froch fan in terms of his personality, and I wanted Groves to beat him. But he wouldn't get smashed to bits. I'm not saying he wins, but he's much better than that. He's a much better fighter than a lot of people do give him credit for.
So, Paul, are you thinking that you don't think Golovkin can stop Carl Froch then?
I'm not saying he can't, but let's be honest. Froch has been in with big hitters. He's never been probably with anyone as precise as that, or as technically as good as Golovkin. But Froch is a big guy. Golovkin has been banging out middleweights left, right, and centre, and that's why I say I want to see Golovkin knock out Peter Quillen. I want to see Golovkin knock out Canelo, knock out Cotto. Talk about guys at his own weight class, other big guys for his weight. Once I've seen that, then let him move up. At the moment, he's racked up and he's had a ton of world title defences against guys who he should be beating. Fighting guys like Monroe's great because it's keeping him busy, but he should be knocking out those guys. So a lot of hype about him, which is great, and everyone wants to see him fight. I don't think Golovkin builds a career by knocking out an old Carl Froch.
Of course he
Okay, I'll
does.
just
Of course I think Carl Froch would be an absolute huge name. I think Carl Froch would be arguably a bigger name than Cotto for him in terms of like respect that
Yeah,
he
but
would
you
earn
I
got
do
from
think
that fight.
if he did stop Carl Froch as well, that's a massive statement, no matter how long he's been outside the ring.
Absolutely. I
Well,
mean, it's stepping up, and he's basically fighting the number one guy. I mean, I'm admitting that he's number one guy at the moment because Andre Ward is doing fuck all with his life, and fighting Paul Smith doesn't really do much for your career. But he is essentially stepping up and fighting the number one guy at the moment, and I would think he would knock him out. And that is pretty much the general consensus. I think even Adam would probably admit that Froch might get knocked out in that fight.
yeah, might, but not like I say. It's not a certainty. Like some people like yourself are saying that it's just guaranteed to happen. Froch has only been down a couple of times. He's recovers well. He's also because of his size and his weight, he's got the ability to put a lot of pressure on someone like Golovkin. Like
He's
I
not
say, I'm
big
not.
though, is he? The thing is, Golovkin rehydrates to more than Froch does at this time. That's the thing about it. I don't think Froch does have a size advantage over it. People are sort of natural middleweight or middleweight. He's not. He rehydrated to 174 against Rubio, and I think Froch says he rehydrates to about 172, 173.
Yeah, I think for the Kessler rematch, Froch said he was 171 for the fight. So I
Yeah,
mean, he doesn't. He's a big suit middleweight, but he's not a guy who like packs on the weight afterwards. Adam, I'll give the final words to you as the Carl Froch lover on the podcast. You don't want it to happen, you've said, but if it does, you see a knockout for Golovkin, or can your man pull out another huge upset?
I think if Golovkin was 5 or 10%, maybe 15% faster with his punches than what he is, I'm not saying he's slow, but if he was, then I'll be extremely worried. The only saving grace I've got at the minute is that Golovkin's last 2 or 3 fights, he's scored knockdowns, very early in the fights, but it's took him, more than a few rounds to actually dispose of them. So maybe we're seeing, as Martin Murray was definitely a step up. I don't know whether Monroe was, but as we're seeing him step up in quality, maybe his power is diminishing in relative terms a little bit. So that would give me some hope. But I just think the amount of time that Froch has been out of the ring, and there's been so much discussion about. I think he virtually is retired, but I know it's boxing and you can we get reversals on retirements all the time, but it just would seem very final when he's scared of making that final decision to to quit his job, or is the grass greener on the other side. Is just flirting with it at the minute, but I wouldn't want to see it, because I think if we've seen Groves knock Froch down bad and hit and land loads of punches on him over the interim rounds, back in the first fight. If we've seen Groves do that, then Golovkin's going to do damage. But as you know, I'm not going to commit to an outright statement on the result.
It's just retiring at the right time, isn't it? I mean, you saw recently, Joe Calzaghe retired at the right time, getting the guy he wanted. Roy Jones, big payday, finishing off in the United States. Lennox Lewis obviously went out at the right time. For Froch, you'd say, knocking out George Groves the way he did at that. I can't remember the name of the venue or how many people were there, but the way he did it, that'd be a perfect sign off for
Yeah,
him personally. You would think, but the lure of that one more fight against a guy who most people would pick against him. You know, Froch seems to like being the underdog and proving people wrong, so that's the gambles there. But I think, you know, for Froch, I think it would be the wise decision to just bow out now and go out on that win. But
I,
as a fan, I gotta say, I really want to see the
I
fight.
think it's gone that long now. You know, if he'd have retired, you know, last July or August, when his height was, you know, when his fame, if you like, and you know, man on the street was at the highest, and you know, they'd done all that many buys in front of all that many people, you know, that would have been the perfect time. Now it's almost as if they've let it rumble on that. You know, they're thinking that if he was to retire tomorrow, yeah, it would be on the breaking news of Sky Sports News for an hour, but you know, it's good a bit under the radar because this is a man who hasn't fought for 12 months. I just wonder if they've misjudged the retirement kind of thing, and that's maybe what's you know beckoning them back in. But it's a highly dangerous fight, you know, and as I've said, probably for less money than Groves, probably does less pay per view buys than Groves, and you know, is that good enough? I'm not sure.
Well, it's got us all excited anyway, so we'll see in the coming weeks what happens. I'd like to thank Paul Webb, Adam Smith, Alex Morris. I've been your host, Kurt Ward. Please leave your comments in the video below. Keep listening and subscribing. Thanks a lot.